Hey guys, Built here. Hope you guys are having an awesome evening. I'm making this video to try to help out some people here that may be having the same issue as I've been. I have a B2200 with the 2.2 liter and it's carbureted. The previous owner threw a Weber carburetor on it, and when it doesn't like running the 6 or 7 psi the factory mechanical pump was putting out, so I threw a deadhead regulator on it. Now, the problem with a deadhead regulator is the fuel tends to sit in the line between the regulator and the carburetor after your fuel pump, because obviously the fuel pump has a return line. Now, in the middle of summer, when you're getting hot temperatures like we've been experiencing, you'll experience a phenomenon known as vapor lock. And this is where the fuel after the mechanical pump will start to boil in the lines, and the pump is no longer able to push the fuel through the lines. So you get all sorts of stuff from hard starts to it cutting out, hesitation, power loss, all types of things you don't want to deal with. So, on to the solution. Now, to combat this fuel sitting in the lines problem, what we want to do is we want to run a return style fuel system similar to an EFI, where the fuel actually comes from the pump, goes through the filter, goes through your fuel rail, which is what I'll show you in my next video what I created, and then through the bypass regulator and goes out through an outlet back to the tank. So since the fuel is constantly recirculating, it never gets a chance to boil off. Also, when you put a gas under higher pressure, the boiling temperature of it increases with pressure. So, on to my point here. I got this fuel pump. It's a 120 gallon per hour performance world. It's basically a clone of a Holley Blue. These pumps are adjustable. The thing is, they only go down to about 7 psi. But, so, I need to make my Weber happy, they like to run it around 1.5 to 2 psi. So, this pump, you have to run a regulator with it, and it likes a return style. So now the problem I found was nobody makes a good cheap bypass style regulator that actually goes down to 1 to 3 psi. Aeromotive makes one. It only goes down to 3 psi. It's about $250. It's too much. Now Holley makes these deadhead regulators. This is a clone of a 12-803. Now, these ones go from about 1 to 9 psi. The problem is they don't make them with a bypass style. Holley does make a bypass style regulator that looks identical, and its part number is 12-804. Sorry, and that one actually is a bypass style, but it only goes down to about 4.5 psi, which the Weber's not going to be happy. So, what I'm going to show you today is how you can take a 12-804 regular regulator. This is the deadhead regulator that goes from 4.5 to 9 psi. This is what you want to buy. Actually, what you want to buy is the clone. This is the clone one. This is the 12-804. It's a clone of it, but because it comes with the lighter spring, which gets you actually down to your 1 to 3 psi range. So I'm going to show you how to take this regulator and for a couple bucks convert it into a bypass style regulator that you can't buy. No one makes them. So anyways, very simple. First, start by removing these 4 screws. You'll have a diaphragm and a spring in there. Put that off to the side. Now, normally, you'll see there's a brass. I've already modified this one, by the way. Normally, instead of this brass insert, there's actually a steel insert. And on the other side of this, you'll find, I've lost the ball bearing, but there's actually a ball bearing that sits in there with this spring on top. And it's held in place with this cheap little plastic this clip here. Now anyways, what you want to do is take a screwdriver or a punch that out, and throw the spring, the ball bearing, and the clip in the garbage, because it's useless. So what you want to do after that is I took a 3/8 drill bit, and you want to be very careful when doing this. Ideally you want to drill press, because if you drill this thing crooked, it's not going to seal properly, and you're going to have issues getting your pressure dialed. So drill it as straight as you can, go all the way through with a 3/8 drill bit, and after you've done that, you'll want to flip the carburetor over and tap it out with a 1/8 inch NPT National Pipe Thread, normal plumbing, 1/8 inch plumbing pipe tap, and you're going to want to tap it from the bottom. Now why from the bottom, you ask? Because what we're doing is this brass ring, what I did is I took an 1/8 inch closed nipple, I cut it in half. Now these pipe threads are tapered at the beginning and they get fatter at the bottom. So you want to tap it from the bottom so that when this thing's fully seated in, it actually matches the taper and seals properly. Now, The way I was able to get this to screw in is after I cut my closed nipple in half, I actually took an angle grinder and I notched. Yeah, you can see right there. See how I notched it? I cut a groove in it so you can actually get a flathead screwdriver in there and you screw it in. And this is the part where it gets tricky because the height of this thing is very critical to its operation. Now, luckily, this little nub on the diaphragm will seal perfectly on the inside of a 1/8 inch closed nipple, like better than you could ask. So you'll see that it has these 4 ridges here. What you want to do is thread this in just so it's poking up just far enough that the nub sits on it and you have just a little bit of wiggle room. You can wiggle it so it touches those ribs on either side. Now the way to test this is you hold this on here with your finger and blow through the inlet, and you want to screw it in just until it's completely airtight with your breath, and then that's it. You want it as low as possible, but getting it to still seal. And once you find the sweet spot, I just loaded up a bunch of gas fitter plumbing tape, pipe tape, because it's a lot thicker, seals a lot better. Once you get that level height perfect so that it seals and it doesn't have any play or wiggle room, you're done. Basically, you can throw it all back together, use the lightweight spring, the 1 to 4 psi spring, and just assemble it all back together like you would normally. And this thing will work. Now, the only difference is after you've done this mod, normally the inlets, these have 2 inlets and 1 outlet. What I like to do is I like to throw a bushing in one side, and I like to stick my fuel pressure gauge in one side. Don't mind the T on it. And then the other side, I take an 1/8 inch closed nipple, and I thread this in here, and this 1/8 inch will thread directly into the Weber where the original fuel nipple went. But you're going to want to do this on the opposite side. I'll show this in my next video. This video is just showing you how to modify the carb. But anyways, hope you guys learned something. Hope this saves you money, and hope it solves your heat lock, vapor lock problems, and gives you better performance along at the same time. This is Peterbilt, over and out. Have a great night, you guys.